Hey there, Cube Nation. Welcome back to another live event with us. We found that it's really good information to get out there to you guys, and so we're going to continue trying to do these every other week. On Tuesdays, right now, every other Tuesday, one will be in the middle of the day, like today. The other one will be in the evening. We also recognize and we apologize that the audio isn't always matching up with the video. We're working on it. We're far better at building freeze dryers than we are at making live video events, as you can tell. But we determined that the information that we have to share is desired by you at Cube Nation enough, and we want to get it out of our heads and our experience into yours, so that you know how to use your freeze dryer to use your cube to its maximum capacity and capability. So while we're doing all of this and learning this, bear with us. We'll get better and we'll make these live events so much better. Also, a reminder to anyone who's live watching with us, go in the chat on YouTube and post any comments or questions. We'll get to them later in the show, and we love to hear how you're using your cube and love to share it with those around us. And all the other viewers appreciate it as well, because they probably have the same question. They just might not be ready to put themselves out there. So ask away. Later in the show, we'll answer all the questions that you have. We've also gathered some questions from previous experiences here at the end that we're going to try and talk about. One thing that I was asked to mention today is lately we have been running an inventory clearance sale. Just so that you know, that is ending next week, Monday. At the end of the business day, it's done. So if you have friends or family, or even yourself, that have been waiting and trying to determine the time, it's now. That sale is ending and will never come back. So one of the things that we've determined to offer to you at Cube Nation is a layaway program. Let your friends know. We've now created a program that's customizable to your needs and the cash flow that you have. So if you want to lock in the price that is right now with the layaway program, go online on our website. When you get to checkout, choose lay-by. That's the way that you can go in, and beyond that, you can customize how long you want the layaway program to be, how much the deposit is, all of those things. We've tried to make it as easy as possible for you, because we know that you, like us, are struggling through this current economy. Hopefully elections will get past it and we can all move on. Today, our topic is about storing the food that you freeze dry. In the past 2 weeks, we've talked about using the food. Today, it's storage. And it's all about how long and how you're going to use it. So we're going to start with the shortest amount of time of storage to the longest. First off is maybe you're freeze drying things that you're going to use immediately. For example, I freeze dry cilantro because I use it all the time, and it's just like having it fresh, but it's just in a powder form, and it smells so good because that's what it is. It's basically fresh without the water. And then I just crush it up and put it in a little shaker like this. But this is something I use all the time. So I freeze dry it, I crush it up, and I put it in a little shaker jar that I actually found on Amazon. So there are things like that that I use. If you went to our YouTube channel recently and you saw it where we had made smoked paprika, again, it's something that I use immediately. So I'm just putting it right into these jars. I'll use it, next time I need paprika, I'll just go buy more peppers at the store, assuming they're not recalled like eggs right now. So there's very short-term uses. Remember, part of the good reason to do stuff like this is that if you buy commercial spices and herbs, they have so many fillers in them. And one of them being sawdust. So you don't want that in your herbs and spices. So that is very short-term storage and uses. Next is, if there are things that I know I'm going to use in the coming weeks or anytime, say in the next year, maybe a year and a half or so, I will put the freeze-dried items in jars like this. This happens to be shredded mozzarella cheese. I think I showed this to you guys a couple weeks ago. But this is something that we use in dishes, and I know that it's going to be used sometime in the next year or year and a half. And the reason that I put it in jars is because it's easily resealable, unlike some of the Mylar bags where you have to tear it open. It's easily resealable so that you can use it and then store it again for another couple of weeks or a month or so. The reason that you don't do storage in jars long term is, one big thing is cur and ball and whatnot. They even say on their websites, the lids, they only expect to last for 18 months. So we try and follow that. If it's something I know I might not use for a year or two, maybe 3, I might do this with an oxygen absorber. But we do things like chicken that we used last time in our cracked chicken chili recipe. But this is something we use daily or at least weekly. And so we'll put it in jars in amounts that we know we can use. Things like, this is green bell peppers, something we'll put in a stir fry. And so it's easy for us to use later. Often what I'll do when I'm putting up or freeze drying something like this is I'll do, say, 2/3 of it for long-term storage and some of it for short-term storage because I know I'm going to use it. Blackberries that we picked this year, I put them in a jar because, let's be honest, we're going to open it and eat them probably next week, and they'll be gone faster than we can store them anyway. We have a question that just came through, and the question is, wait, you can reseal a jar? Yes, you can. In fact, because we're not boiling them or in the steamer, we're not really ruining the rubber seal. We're just pulling the vacuum on it. And if it's for a short period of time, you can reuse the lids, reseal them. I've seen lots of different ways that people use to reseal them. We can use the cube with our jar seal mode, and maybe that's something we'll do an entire episode on coming up. But yeah, open it up, use some of it, put the lid back on, same lid, same ring, put it in the cube, jar seal mode, 2 minutes later, it's resealed. Or if you're just using one jar, maybe there's lots of products out there about vacuuming jars to seal them. Just reseal it and use it again next week. That's a lot of bell peppers, and maybe we won't use them all in one meal. So we'll want to reseal them. So you'll see, I'll show you the shelf system that I have where I just put jars on there. And these are some of the things like green beans, there's milk, there's strawberries, there's some other things that we use on a more frequent basis. And then I put them on a shelf in a dark closet. So short-term storage Jars are a great thing. And they're easy to use and reuse and reseal. That's why I use them for short-term storage. In fact, sometimes when I open a bag of something that was long-term storage, if I have any left over, I'll put it in a jar and reseal it and just know that the date that's on there now, I need to use it sometime in the next year or so. So let's talk about longer term storage now. We're talking about 2 years to 30 years, right? This is set it aside for rainy day, or maybe you're thinking, I'm not going to use all of that in the next year. I had a huge bumper crop of peppers, or there was a neighbor that gave me a big bowl full of berries, or maybe there was a huge sale of things at the store that you know you might not use in the next year. So let's talk about longer term storage. Mylar bags have been proven to protect food against deterioration for longer term. And let's talk about why. There are 3 things that degrade your food. Water, number 1, which we're taking care of in the cube. We're already dealing with that, so the water's gone. It cannot degrade it anymore unless we leave it out to gather humidity. Second thing is oxygen, and we're taking care of that by sealing it, vacuuming it, putting in oxygen absorbers for long term. And you put those in these bags. I don't know if you can see on the camera how it's kind of sucked in a little bit, the bag. That's because there's an oxygen absorber in there that created more of a vacuum, and so it sucked in the bag after it was sealed. The third thing that degrades food is light. That's another reason not to put them in jars for long term, but the Mylar bags do protect against the light. So whether you're doing them in bags like this, like we sell, or vacuumable bags, just make sure that you find something that will protect against the light as well, because light degrades food. You would be surprised at how discolored some of your food will become if you don't. It also protects against flood or whatever if you have these Mylar bags that are totally sealed. I hope that you don't have to go through that, but if you do, make sure you seal them well enough to keep the water out so that you actually have food when you need it. The other good benefit to bags like this in a non-food storage manner is if you're a camper or you like going in your RV or a sailboat or anything like that, it's really easy to grab food like this that's already ready. It's lightweight. You can drop it in a bin to go for whatever trip you have, and you already have the food packaged, ready to use. So then, once you've gathered your bags full of food, find a bin or something to store them in. Find a place that you can organize your food so you know what it is. I saw somebody who had freeze-dried a whole bunch of food, put it in bags like this, and it was in a garbage bag sitting in their storage area, and they had no idea what was in there. So then they have to dig through and, oh, yeah, I remember I freeze-dried cheesecake 20 years ago. Let's try that. So in order to prevent that from happening, I've created a system, an inventory system that I actually put on the outside of the bins. And I'll show you here what that looks like. You can see where I list the food that's dried, the month and year. I don't really care about the actual date, just the month and year. And then the little boxes with the X's in them, that marks how many bags of each thing that are on there. This is the last bin that I assembled, and I'm grateful for all those eggs. Right now, try going to Costco and buy eggs, right? So you don't have that option. And then later, when you go pull a bag out, you just fill in that little square where the X is, so you know that you took one of those bags. And that's the system that we use in my house. I've got kids who are off at college and whatnot, and they come shopping at my house, where they'll come and they usually take the things like the peach cobbler and leave the green beans, right? But they'll come through and I just tell them, you have to mark it off so I know it's not on my inventory anymore. And then I have a master inventory of everything that's in the bins so that I know and can look and say, you know what, I am going to make a stir fry this week. I need to know, do I have the onions, the peppers, maybe I'll put tomatoes in it, all the things that I might want to put in there. I go look and see what's in my pantry. Maybe it's in jars or maybe it's in bags. It doesn't matter, but I have it there. And as long as I mark it off and know later, I don't have to go searching through the whole house trying to see, do I have diced onions? Well, the answer is yes. I have a lot of diced onions because they're really easy to use. Freeze-dried. Same with crushed garlic. I have a lot of that because it's so easy to use. So let's check our time here. Let me ask the moderator here, do we have any questions further coming through? One of the questions that, while some of those are coming through, that we keep getting asked is, can you put the jars in something dark and protect them, and will they last longer? Well, the answer is, being in the dark and cool, yes, it will make them last longer. And you and I both know that if you go to Grandma's house, she has jars of food that are still sealed and have been for 10 years. And the food is probably still good in there. But for protection's sake, I try and err on what the manufacturers of the jars say and allow food stored in jars to only be a couple of years. And it works out well anyway, because these take up a lot less space in the bins. Let's see what else. Okay, one of the questions was, do you need to put oxygen absorbers in the jars? It depends again on what it is. And I will say this, that you can always err on safety and put oxygen absorbers in the jars. Now, these blackberries, we picked these, I don't know, a month or so ago, and we've been through several jars already. I didn't bother with an oxygen absorber because I knew within a month or two, we were going to eat them. And so I didn't bother with that. I did put one in the green peppers, because I thought they might not get used as fast. And it's true, they are now about 1.5 years old in here, so we should use them. Meats, if you know you're not going to use the meat within the next month or so, just be careful. Maybe put oxygen absorbers in with those, because the fats in those can go rancid. Especially, like we'll freeze dry bacon. We try and cut off the major fat, but they're high in fat, and we always put oxygen absorbers in when we're storing those. And then I don't have to worry about it as much. And the question about the herbs, do you need them in there too? Again, it's how long are they going to be there? I don't bother by the time they get in here, because I believe that this jar was full about 3 weeks ago. That's how much we use in cilantro. The paprika, I try not to fill these little jars that aren't air sealed necessarily. And so I will seal the paprika and things in jars like this, the bigger jars, and then use that to refill this. It never hurts to put oxygen absorbers in. And I know they cost money, so we're all trying to save a little bit here and there. So just be smart in what you do. Again, if it's only for a few weeks or a few months, you probably don't need to worry about it, except for foods that can go rancid with oxygen, like bacon and things like that. Let me see what else I've been told here. Okay, one of the questions that we received is, do you have to put the bags in bins that are watertight and airtight? Well, as far as airtight goes, the bags should already be airtight, and they should already be watertight if you've sealed them correctly. Don't just use the Ziploc, but actually heat seal them, and they should also be watertight. And you know what? Some places around the world and around the country, they're not worried about floods as much. I have a friend who is, their daughter is in Florida right now and got sent away from their house. And yeah, they're worried about floods. So be smart again. If you can put them in containers that are watertight, then you know later when you come back to it, you still have your food. So be smart and be safe about how you store your food. Let me check here about that. No new questions in there, but one question I did get asked recently at a trade show that we were at is, how thick are the bags? They are 5 mil bags, and we have found them sufficient for storage and what we're doing. If you're going and the bags are getting lots of abuse, like in a backpack or whatever, maybe you want a thicker bag depending on how you pack. I usually try and pack my food anyway in my backpack a lot safer so the bags don't get punctured anyway. But they are 5 mil and they are opaque, so they do block out the light and they block out the water and the air. Okay, let me find out if there's any last questions here. All right, thanks for joining us for another live event. Again, we will get a lot better at these, and our whole object behind this is to give you information as to how you can use your freeze dryer on a daily basis for more than just the harvest. It makes me sad to find out that people will use their freeze dryer really heavy for about 3-4 weeks during the harvest, and then it sits. Because there's so many other things that it can be used for, and that it can change your life in the way you use, store, and eat food. One of the upcoming events we're going to talk about is dietary things, and we might invite some of you because I know that you have a lot of good information about that. The uses of real foods versus prepackaged, and the dietary benefits to that we all know are huge. And the convenience of having foods prepackaged from the store, you get rid of if you package your own food when you have it, right? I've just been told we've got another thing coming in here. Oh, somebody mentioned that they had just watched the candy making. It's amazing. And I agree. In fact, coming up, we're going to do another episode on candy making as well. That's the fun part, right? Who doesn't love watching the Milk Duds explode in your freeze dryer? Now, as far as using the Candy Express mode for other foods, okay, please don't try and freeze dry your fruits, your meats, your any other food in the Candy Express mode. Even herbs, I wouldn't do in Candy Express mode. Now, things like marshmallows, yes, use Candy Express mode. The other thing that I have used Candy Express mode for, and it wasn't designed for this, and the engineers are going to kill me for telling you this, but maybe you've done this like me. You've gone and tested a few foods that, and when you pull it out at the end of the cycle, and they were dry except for like 5%. Say it's some berry or whatever that they're a little harder to freeze dry, and there's a few that just aren't dry. But I've already canceled the cycle, so I can't add more time. I have used Candy Express mode to finish things like that. But remember, only to finish, only the last 2 hours, because that's how long Candy Express mode is, or the Pro mode. You can do more, but you don't want to put foods in there and run the temperature up to 150 degrees immediately, or they're just going to end up a soggy mess. So that's why you don't use candy mode on regular foods unless they already reached, the 140 degrees that the end of the cycle is. So that's what you can use Candy Express mode for other than candy. And if I'm not on the next episode, just know that the engineers got a hold of me and I'm not around anymore. So I think we've reached the end of our time. If another question comes through, they'll interrupt me. But remember, use your cube. Use it. Use it all the time, because there are so many things you can use it for. Tell your friends and family that if they've been sitting on the fence, the time is running out on the sale that we've been having, the inventory clearance sale. Less than a week left. We've finally been told we've reached the end of that. That's the $1,000 off. Go lock in that price with a layaway if you need to. You can set the payment terms, I'm told, out a year if you need to. Wait, that's a long time. We should change that probably. No, we won't. We're going to let you take advantage of the price that we're offering today and lock it in ways that might be more affordable for you. One other thing here right at the end before we sign off is people asked us a lot at the trade show we were at last week. We thought you guys were all about oil-free pumps. So why are you now offering an oil pump? We may do an episode here coming up about the difference between the two. But here's why. It isn't about the oil-free pump having a problem, because that was one of the things that was asked of us. It was all about being able to offer you the cube at a better price. So if you're just looking to get into it and then you can't quite swallow the price for the oil-free pump, you can still get into it and get all the same benefits of the cube just with an oil pump. So don't be scared away from it just because we're offering it. We know that it's a big expense. We know that it's an investment, but it's an investment you will never regret. So if you need to start there, do so. And later down the road, maybe we figure out how to get you into an oil-free pump, but start where you can. So for all the people who had asked at the trade show and all those people who've been wondering out there that didn't meet us at the trade show, that's why we're offering it. Otherwise, Cube Nation, it's been fun to be with you again. In 2 weeks, we're going to have another evening show, and we're going to send out in our emails and on Facebook and everything what the topic is. But tune in with us. Keep chiming in with your suggestions, your questions. Tell us how you're using it. Or ask us a bunch of questions and we'll make an episode just for you.